Life at Milgery. My name is Pauline Fegan and I live on Milgery Station, a 32,000 acre property just outside of McKinley. I've always been on the land, although I was brought up on a cattle station called Recruit in Clermont. I came out to McKinley in 1965 after I married my husband Brian. It was in the middle of the drought. 1965 and 66 were shocking years. The whole area around McKinley was sheep, and I had come just after the big wool boom. Because of the drought, I was faced with starving sheep, and it was my job to drive the four-wheel drive to pick up the lambs that couldn't walk. You could call it a bit of a sea change, since I was used to trees and running water and things growing. Out here there was open downs, and the only water was from a bore. Brian and I had 9 children, 5 boys and 4 girls. I went to Townsville or Judah Creek for their births, although one was born at the Bush Nursing Centre in McKinley, a very nice experience. The children all did homeschooling and then boarding school. They did this for a correspondence school and school of the year. We would have governesses when we could manage to. I advertised for them through the Queensland Country Life. I remember they would arrive by the McCafferty's bus on a Friday to start school on Monday, and all the young fellows would come to town to check them out. I managed to marry 2 of them off to local boys. Our lifestyle then was quite different to what it is today. This was a generation where the husband was expected to provide and the women were expected to do their bit as the homemaker. We didn't have a lot of worldly goods, and we certainly didn't have to look after all that stuff that people seem to have to do today. It was a fairly simple life. I'm not saying that we had it tougher then, but it was different. For a start, we didn't have electricity. We didn't get this till 1982. Rural power changed our life big time. We had kerosene refrigerators that smoked, and I used to cook on a big Argus stove that was fuelled by coke that a carrier would bring in from Newcastle in bags every couple of years or so. Some of my fondest memories around station life revolved around the shearing. A team of 12 or so men would come in once a year to shear. They would bring their own cook. The cooks would often be quite cranky. Having a lot of children, they all wanted to help out. Schooling usually stopped for shearing and crutching. We ended up changing our shearing to fit with the school holidays. Not that we had much spare time, but for entertainment we would come into tennis every Sunday. Back then we didn't have artificial turf. It was dirt, dust and ant beds. And we would have to come in early to water the ground and roll it. And the men had their cricket. We had races 3 times a year. And of course there was the Walkabout Creek Hotel. It was the Federal Hotel back then. The Catholic Church had Mass once a month. I was always involved in the CWA. I learned to keep the books, a skill I was to find very helpful later on in life. At home we had a radio, or perhaps I should call it a wireless. We used to listen to the news, Blue Hills and the Russ Tyson breakfast show. We had a telephone party line, which meant that we could talk to our neighbours for as long as we wanted. What with this and the kids, we were never lonely. You know, looking back, I've loved the lifestyle. I've never thought of living anywhere else. I haven't known anything else, really. The highlight of my story would be the wonderful district of McKinley, as it was and still is. It's a wonderful area to live in. I've made some good friends here. Many of them have retired now and have moved on. I'm not ready to move on yet. Living here gives me a purpose. No one really wants to retire, not when you've had a busy life like I have.